So I think you kind of have an idea of how this will go, but what we're gonna do, or at least traditionally how it goes, is that we just go one story at a time at first, and we just talk about it, and we talk about what we think it means, what the themes are, what is important, and how it relates to the prompt. So at any point, if you in the Google Drive folder, there should be like a facilitation guide or some like prompting questions, if it's helpful. But I'm here just to help guide the conversation, and yeah, just be a part of the analysis. But otherwise, yeah, it's kind of just a collective exercise on like, yeah, analyzing the stories and how language connects us to place. And yeah, so there's really no like set time for how long the like a focus group can go, but I want to give you your day, and I know Brittany, you have work later, so like 3 to 4 hours is kind of typical. But I want to make sure that everybody has like enough time to say what they want, and at the end, after we go through all of the stories, we will talk about it a little bit more collectively, like how do these stories relate to each other, and yeah, and then that would be kind of the wrap up. Oh, and also I wanted to make sure that everybody also knew that the plan was, so I submitted a proposal to the Bulbacha Public Access, like open call for interviews for like the Recognized Stories project that they're doing. So I was going to submit this specific focus group. So I wanted to make sure that that was also cool before that happens.
Yep, I consent.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So,
As president of the BPA, I said no. Yes, yes, yes.
well, the
Cool.
president of HLP said yes. So now what? We're in
Let's
the bidding
go.
war. See you at the stickball field.
Yep. Yep.
Cool. Anybody have any questions or anything before like we just kind of jump into it?
No.
What do you do to your hair? So luscious.
Mine?
Yeah.
I
No.
condition it almost every day because since bleaching it, it gets so dry.
Mhm.
So I have to condition it like a lot.
All right, that's my only question. I'm hyped up on cat. Don't mind. Don't entertain me. Don't care.
Thing is like I'm an enabler. So if you banter, I will banter, but I'll do my best to be a good
I,
facilitator.
I'll do my best to be a participant.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I ordered them like in no particular order, but we could just go with story number one first. So let's see. What do you think that this story is about? What stands out to you in the story? Oh, also, I guess I'll actually ask, do y'all want some time to like reread the stories just briefly?
I'm ready to hop right in, but I can move at the group pace.
I'm good. I remember.
Cool.
I actually wrote this story. Just kidding, I didn't write this. I think as what resonates with me about the story is like it brings me back to the grieving process that I had to do of losing of the version of the place that I know as home, like from Katrina. And it seems like the author's connection to language like supported that place grieving process that they were going through.
Mm.
What can y'all tell about like the setting of the story? Like how does the author describe the place that they're at?
Through the dialogue in the present, like we're at the zoo to see the lions and bears, um, but then going back in the past to the mind in inner dialogue.
Mm.
I also do the fala thing and call to the crows since learning their word.
I like the reference to the Wizard of Oz too, like just the storm transforms the person's community into this like um fantastical setting, even though it's the reason why it looks the way that it does is really hard.
Yeah. It's like very, yeah, I feel like a lot of people who are from this area or the Gulf South like know what that looks like has a memory that is similar.
Sure.
Brittany, do you have any initial thoughts?
Um, yeah, just that the descriptive language in there really like sets you into the moment, and like you're there in the memory with the character,
Mm.
and like especially with the birds, like 'cause I wrote this story. Like I tried to describe the birds a few times to show like the character of the birds. Like they're not just part of the setting, they're also um active character in the story.
Mhm. They have active memory too.
Yeah, they have active memory too.
Just just for scientific purposes, could we hear how you pronounce the crow sound?
It's
What's your
voila.
is it like fala or is it like fala?
I mean, when you're talking to the crows, you're like voila, voila.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, I think it's really interesting in the story that like part of the way that the birds like like are described as a character in the story is also through the language. Like the language connects the author and the kids through to the birds through language, even if like they're not necessarily in the same place that they remembered, you know?
Mm.
I thought bringing in like the children, like there it's actually pretty intergenerational. Like there's the mom, the kids, and then it goes into talking about the great great grandmother.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and the uncle, like it's a memory within a memory, like remembering what the uncle told you from their memory.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. What do you think
Like
like the tone of the story is, you know, like how does it feel?
I think nostalgic through um I think nostalgic through personally.
yeah,
Like, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Even in my personal place, I can think of nostalgic grief of like a time when I grieved a different thing, and you're kind of reliving that too, and then the layers of something building on that. That's it. That's
Yeah.
the thought.
And I was just gonna copy Ida, but say it's like it's almost like sweet bitter rather than bittersweet.
Mm,
Um, because when you starting off at the zoo with the crows, it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be like a real, it's gonna be like a light story, and it's not a judgment or a bad thing that it goes into like this nostalgic memory of home and loss. Like it's very human in that way. Um, like just this very mundane situation with the child, it sends you back like thinking generations and um like it's a very familiar feeling. It's probably like a Louisianaism at that. We're very nostalgic people.
mm,
Yeah, it's a complex situation. Like, cause I brought you in like with a fun little moment, and then oh shit, she gotta go in deep and like think about all this. Like, why can't she just be in the moment at the zoo with her daughter?
yeah.
Why you always gotta think about the past? Why you gotta think
Yeah,
about the past stuff?
yeah,
Oh, it happened decades ago.
Yeah.
It was complex, like the refreshing flavor of a Dr. Pepper.
No thanks.
Are you getting paid for that?
Hey, you just see $500,000 show up at BPA, you know? Like, don't ask no questions.
Just put a can in my next video.
Mhm.
Yeah, we need a sponsorship. Why not?
Mhm. We no longer we no longer rock with Barks. It's all about Dr. Pepper right now.
Yep, yep. Hey, get out of
I feel like I mean, the story is all like really rich with description, but I thought like the ending was so like potent. Like yeah, just the part about like her kid not ever knowing a certain place or or being able to remember it. And then like I don't know, something about it was just like so I don't know, it really hit. I don't know. Like, is there anything about like in other parts of the descriptions of in the story that you're like, oh yeah, that really like, I don't know, hit me in a certain way?
Yeah, and definitely the loss of family land. I mean, I like also have direct connection with that too, with my own people's land, my own family's land, and seeing land when I was a kid that is not there anymore. The reason I moved back to Louisiana is because it was like if I didn't move back, I wasn't gonna have a chance to anymore because my family's so far down the bayou. Like if I didn't come back and see these things now and be with the land, there's not gonna be that chance in the future. So it's just like a reality of living down here and being in communion with the land because it's like the water's coming, the water's here, it's pouring and flooding here literally right now.
Yeah.
You saying that also makes me think about like deep history of the Homa and like just the periods of movement by by the spread of colonialism. And so there's like the settler phase that pushed all of our ancestors down into the bayous, and then
Mm.
there's this eco-colonialism that's happening that's pushing us back inland. So it's like, yeah, that connected with this story about like what the crows and other animals have witnessed of like our migrations and stuff.
Mm.
It's really potent here. I also thought that it was dope that, like I would have thought that all of the stories would have been about like names, place names,
Mm.
but it's literally like an animal call that links to place, which I thought was really, I thought it was very, very skilled of the writer to take that approach.
Yeah. I like that too. Like I like that it in a lot of ways like I mean place names are so important, but it's all like the cool thing about language beyond place names is that like it's generative, so it's not just about memory the way that a place name might be, where like you see a crow and you're like, oh, fala or whatever, and like there's other things that can like really prompt like both memory and just like something new in a place. Yeah, I liked it. What do y'all think like the can you tell like what the author wishes or like what they are like yearning for?
No, I'm eating fresh donut sticks. I have a question though, real quick. Can you hear the rain through my?
I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just want to make sure it's filtering. What was the question again? What do you wish? What does the author wish was happening? What
Or
happened?
like what are the interests or wishes of the author? Is there a way that you can tell what those are?
That the kids could know that place. That that the author could, or that the character could go back to that place. wondering
Mm,
about the water too, I guess. Like ever present water. What will the water claim?
yeah.
And loss of the ways in which their ancestors interacted with the land. They can't hunt it, they can't camp it, they can't visit their kin folks that were there.
Mm,
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no more berry picking over there. Like, like do the crows even still roost there if there's nothing for them to eat? There's nothing for them to land on. It's just water.
mm.
There's some real gangster pelicans over there now.
Yeah, some egrets.
The occasional bull shark.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah,
What layer of did the crows lose their home too?
Mm.
yeah,
Something we don't think about enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Oh, I had a question and then I lost it. I was looking at it.
While we're talking about water, I also really like the image of like the author's kids floating in like a boat shrimp net.
That's the actual thing. Like we actually did that. We parked the boat in the dock and my uncle let down the shrimp net and we just climbed down off the boat into the shrimp net and just floated with the jellyfish in the shrimp net.
Oh my gosh.
Cool.
I
To
love
use
that.
as bait.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I really loved in the story, like someone if someone who weren't from this area read it, like I think they would still get a sense of like what the area looks like or feels like, but it's just like so it's like I don't know, maybe it's nostalgic, but it's also like it also still, even though it's like there's so much of it that's kind of heartbreaking, just like knowing that it's this place is disappearing, like reading it just feels good to like, especially like just remembering, like reading that memory part of like, yeah, the bayou.
It feels like I I remember when I was like 8 or so, and we went down the bayou to go visit the old campground that was like underwater and whereabouts it was. So it's like, is this a rite of passage for the South Louisiana kids? Like
Yeah.
going down and visiting the family plot that's underwater now.
Mm,
This is where we used to be. This used to be land. This used to be lots of land.
There's also like there's also like this feeling of hope, possibly because the in some ways like the kids in the story, maybe they experienced this not as loss, but as like this is a transformation of the territory where our folks are from. And since they're already growing up inside of shrimp boat nets and stuff, like maybe they have a relation to the land underneath the water that we we can't imagine yet because we're so used to standing on land. But how they come up, they're boat people, and we're mud boot people.
yeah.
Yeah. It's more like the character has a yearning for her children to these know the culture through the land and the land's not there. So now they're wondering how can keep that culture alive through the water.
Mm, yeah, like the yearning for the kids to like learn to know about the land and just like having to like contend with like that. maybe not being possible. And then like, but how you do it, like how the author does it in the story is immediately through language. Like it was like a prompt, like that immediately was a way to like talk about the culture or like at least in a small way.
Yeah, like interacting with the crows, um, as you know, as like a willing participant with the language.
Mm, yeah. I'm thinking kind of something that you said, Dane, about like how the kind of like blending everyday, like mundane things or like mundane might not be the right word, but like yeah, just like a normal day in the life, but like suddenly like that cultural transmission becomes like so important and like kind of sacred, Like it's like you wouldn't expect that moment to be as important as it was or could have been.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. You go ahead. I'll go after you.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, as a mother, like, you really have to be cognizant of how you present the world to your children,
Mm.
and cognizant of how you walk into the world because they're watching you. Your children are always watching you, and so, um, like the mundane things like that, my daughter remembers that. Well, she remembers that moment, and I remember that moment because it's even though it's such a little thing talking to the birds, that's something that she'll remember. Like even just like asking for my phone in Uma, that's something that she remembers and that she'll keep with her forever. So like yeah, like I have to be really hyper aware sometimes of how I present information to the kids.
Do they ever say fala now?
Yeah, she remembers. We don't really have too many crows over here, so she doesn't have like the chance to do it. But whenever we go down to Louisiana, and there's crows everywhere. She's like, "What's the word? Follow, follow, follow." I like follow. Yeah,
That's so sweet. I'm thinking about the birds again of like I was like trying to think of the right word, but because we were talking about how like they're, are they losing their place too? And like who is a witness for change? And I think Ida, you were saying like I guess you all were saying about how they also have carry memory and everything. And I was like trying to think of the word, but like witness was a big one.
yeah. That's what I was like sounding at the end. Like only the birds can testify that it existed, but they divulge nothing, just follow.
Mm.
So like all those animals have memories. Um, and it's not so much kept secret, it's just that we don't know how to communicate with the animals because we're so far disconnected from them now.
I think the part of the story that I didn't see on the first couple reads was that like when the Wizard of Oz framing of what the scene looks like sent me places, so I missed the line after that talked about the oil field exploration is what sank the bayou. Um, and thinking about what's mundane and what's sacred, like what this interaction is sacred because the oil field exists. But in another place and time, this interaction between a mother and a child would be completely mundane. Like this is how you get introduced to animals in our culture, period. But now, because of everything that's happened before, the quality of this experience that's being described has both mundane and sacred qualities to it. at the same time. And like the author doesn't like it's not the hurricane that did what it's not the hurricane that robbed the author of like this connection to place. It's it's this larger experiment of colonialism that robbed the author of this connection to place and the crows of that connection to place. I think it's really subtle how they did it. It's very well written, very evocative, profound, even subtle, very, very subtle, right? I like it.
New York bestseller.
New York best-selling indigenous vignette author.
I don't know if I noticed that, or like I don't think I've made that same connection either. Yeah. Because I actually, that just reminds me, I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, I feel like I'm getting tired of like the climate change language, like discourse, just because I was like, I don't feel like it's like, yeah, climate is doing a lot of damage or whatever, but like the weather's our friend, the hurricanes have happened. It's like what we're resisting isn't climate.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and that's why also like the word resilience can be so like, I don't know, annoying. 'Cause it's like resilient just feels like we're going back to like the status quo, like just build back to like things don't change, but resistance is different. And it's like, okay, climate resistance instead of climate resilience. And I was like, I don't feel like that's the right word either. But like what you're saying, Dane, it's like, yeah, the colonial project. Yeah.
See, kinfolk, the same force that brought the lion and the bear to the zoo is the same force that's putting you in a cave. You see what I'm saying? And it's in our best interest to unify with the lion, the bear, and the fala to resist the cage that is white supremacist colonialism. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where it's going with that, but yeah.
No, good.
Sounded good. Yes,
I mean,
speak.
it sounded real good, bro. That sounded real good. I really like it.
Yeah, even at the beginning, whenever she describes the fala as like oil slicked back, which
Yeah, I just peeped that.
like yeah, the
For sure.
I don't know, the pattern there.
Mhm.
Y'all, I wouldn't even like, I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, I was like, dang, y'all right.
That's why this is can be really fun. You're like, oh yeah, I really didn't think about that when I was writing it. Stuff just comes through.
I'll be like, yeah, I did that. You're right. I am the most talented writer of my generation, of
Yeah,
course.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
meant all of that. Yeah, y'all
all of
picking up
that.
on that? You're picking up when I'm laying down.
Picking it up. Y'all even see like the little accent that I put over the E in Helena's name? Man, y'all don't even know.
Yeah, I also really loved that like Fala is like, I mean, it's in every paragraph. Like it's like a refrain, you know? I just like that. Like that it always comes back to
I'm a poet
you
at
didn't
heart.
even know it.
I did not notice that it was in every paragraph till you said that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just going through it again because yeah, we can move on to other stories and just like if things come up and you're like, oh, that reminds me of the first story, there's like we can just go at our own pace with the stories.
I had a question. I know from that like example story that you shared that like that story was marked up. Is that something that you're doing, or are we gonna do that together?
Oh, I did that just to for really the presentation's sake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't planning on doing that together and you don't have to, but it is like a way to just help like prompt like what you might want to look for in a story. So like certain descriptive language or like the verbs or characters and stuff.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. I guess before moving on though, I this is kind of a strange question, but it's what do you think like the author's theory is, or like author's understanding, and this might be redundant, but like what their theory of like relationship between language and place might be, or like what the story's larger message is beyond like the individual experience.
Well, it mentions the name of the place, excuse me, and how that's connected to the crows. So it really is literally a connection of place and like relations with animal nation, relations with the relatives of the character, and then the place itself. It's all Fala all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, building on that. Yeah, like we don't know if the author is in an undisclosed location in Texas or in Louisiana or someplace else, but the power of like an animal relative and like language to trigger and transport them hundreds or thousands of miles away to the place where they're from. It's really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I also actually wanted to mention that she does mention, Grand Isle, like that place. And I have like I've been there like once or twice whenever I was like a kid. But I feel like from an outsider, like if you're not from the area as well, like if you don't know what Grand Isle is, you don't know like how special that place could be. And but also like it is one of like, yeah, the like more endangered places of southern Louisiana. Was just wondering if anybody has like a connection to that place.
Yeah, my uncle used to take me there. I went there a few times for vacation. But in my that's not where my family like had land or had like place relations, but like that's where we visited. That's the vacation place. It's the beach. Yeah, and I just remember when I was there in the late 90s, there being quite a lot of structures and businesses, and then coming back in the later 2000s, and it's just like, oh, like already so much of it is gone, and then I haven't been back since Hurricane Ida.
Yeah, I brought up Grand Isle because not only because Fala is right outside of Grand Isle, um, but Grand Isle is quickly becoming Fala. It's it's the next one that's going to be gone completely, probably within the next 10 years. Because there's only that one stretch of road that gets to Grand Isle, and there's only one way in, one way out. And so the crows are there in Grand Isle now. They've had to be relocated, just like the people have to have been relocated. And so, um, keeping Grand Isle in that memory, the whole area, is important because that's where our people once were. That's where our animal nations once were, and now only the water nation, is available to be there.
Where is Fala in relation to Grand Isle?
So from what I remember, Fala is like 30-45 minutes out by boat from Grand Isle. I remember we stopped in Grand Isle at a store. And the only reason why I remember that because I went to the bathroom and there was a employee there freaking out because there was a little crab on the floor scuttling towards her. And so I picked it up. I'm like, girl, it's okay. It's just a little baby crab. I picked it up and I was gonna throw it in the water because like you had to walk across like a little bridge to get to the store because it was on the water. And I told my uncle, I was like, look, I found a crab in the bathroom. He's like, I wouldn't tell people that if I were you. So yeah. So but anyway, yeah, it's about like 45 minutes by boat out there. Like you have to know the coordinates to get to the camp that was in there. Um, but yeah.
One other thing that just occurred to me too is that I love that the story, like one of the like the main character or one of the main characters being Falah, is that I just realized that Grand Isle, like one of the things that I learned just like later in life, like didn't appreciate as a kid, was that it's like a premier birding destination. Like people like from all over, I guess, love to go to Grand Isle during the spring and fall migrations because that's just like where
Oh
birds
yeah.
love to be and is like a stopover between like Canada and South America.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. There's like that interesting connection of like a bird being like the protagonist of the story and Grand Isle being mentioned. Well, anybody have any other thoughts? I want to take a second to like think over. We can always come back to it too.
No, I'm just sitting here thinking about like what are the birds gonna do when Grand Isle isn't there?
I was thinking about, I don't know, going down to the Pacific and getting with some canoe folks down there, learning how to become water people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the thing. Like we adapt no matter what. Um, and so like we had canoes and stuff. We um floated on the river in our canoes, and I'm pretty sure we did go into the ocean, into the Gulf, and interacted with peoples in the Gulf too.
Definitely.
Yeah. We're resourceful. Y'all cool to move on to the next story? Story number two.
Yep.
What?
Sweet.
I wrote this one.
Very great job. Yo, epic story.
All right. What do y'all think this story is about?
Clearly the story of a young man coming to terms with himself. I'm just kidding.
It's a coming of age.
Ida wrote this one, so I want to see what they think.
Um, it's the story of the the depths of history of land, the depths of history of people with land, the names that people come or the names that places have. I appreciated the multiple languages in here, the Dakota and the Anishinaabe. A story of love.
Yeah. I really like this one because yeah, like Ida said, the story of love and connection with other people's and the connection with themselves. Um, almost like a memory of their being through the connection of other people's in the river. And then at the end, making sure that their partner can feel that same love and connection too, or else I ain't having it. You know, they're like, you need to be on the same level as me because this is who I am. And if you're not cool with that, then we can't be together. I really like that.
We need to get comfortable with a lot of weird shit real quick.
Right, right. Yeah. You need to settle in and buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yeah, I really liked the multiple languages as well. That was really cool. Especially with like the place names, with like Minnesota and everything. I thought that was awesome. I thought like the theme of confluence was really interesting. like the confluence of many things, like language, culture. Um,
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet too. I just like the main thing for me in the story was the connection to people. Like your own culture is thriving because you can connect to these other relatives. And I thought that was really it was really hopeful. That's the word. It gave me hope that even if we lose parts of our culture, um, we can still be relatives with each other and preserve our ways of being and like our ways of connection because we have kinship, and it's not always just within our own community. We have and we can maintain kinship with other communities.
I keep thinking I'm like rescanning it too. Um, there's a lot of history and just like connection through language to the history of people being here at all, through the history of what other people have gone through the history of what the character's own ancestors had gone through, um, the Mississippi River Valley, the whole valley. Um, yeah, I just see there's so much like connection and story and like remembered uh oral history, I guess. Um, and I guess maybe the sacredness of teaching that in the way that it was taught, um, and making relations with people in that way through ceremony. Hmm.
what do you think the tone of the story is? Like, how does it written emotionally, or how does it make you feel emotionally, or the author's emotions?
I think the author was given to great depths of sentiment and bouts of clarity about the human condition. Nah, um, I think it's also like a nostalgic kind of tone. Um, I think that it's also reflective. Um, like the author's trying to like establish with the reader like this is part of how I I am who I am through knowing the name of this place or how knowing the name of this place has shaped who I am in a different way. Um,
It feels very reverent, you know, like there's a lot of like reverent language in it, and I don't know that you can like really feel it. Like you feel like the kind of um especially when it comes to the part whenever like the author's describing being a good guest, like with the and like the reverence that comes with being a good guest. And I feel like also part of it was like in order to like be a good guest and be welcomed and respectful to this place, like also kind of requires like knowing your own culture and your own self, and like know what that feels like.
yeah, it totally reads like the story of somebody who has sacrificed several colonizers to this particular river valley.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that it seemed hopeful for me because like in the beginning the young man was getting to know the waters and know the language and the history. And then the waters carried the young man home to reconnect with kinfolk from his own people and along with his partner. Um, and so like that respect that y'all were talking about that was given to the waters and to the place was also received back like 100-fold through the reconnection. So like if you respect the waters, they'll take care of you.
I know it was already said, but nostalgic came for me too. That was, I think, the big one for me.
Yeah, I like the that I guess in both stories too that like there's like the coexistence of like joy or hope, but also like nostalgia and grief. And I feel like that's yeah. And also in this story and like the previous one also mentions like oil and gas development. Big
Yeah,
through line.
there was yeah, I think one of the other things that had come up for me while even though I didn't write this story, but as I like as someone who with whom this story resonates very deep. Um, like I vividly remember like in the middle of the Lion 3 fight, like folks talking about the Bayou Bridge fight and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, we getting it in on both ends of the river. And just like these small but very important things that just kind of pulled me more and more to like come and reconnect what happening. Um and it was all for the same struggle. So it was also wild just seeing like it's oil companies trying to open up shit on both ends of this giant fucking river. Um, and despite that, there was this really powerful solidarity that was starting to form across the valley. So like one of the cool backstory things in this story is that like there was like a movement that was kind of starting to reemerge up on this end of the river around bioregionalism and stuff and like fostering people's sense of connection to like ecosystems versus political geographies. Um, and Badote was like really central to that here in Minneapolis too. Um, but the author only had one page, obviously, so they couldn't share such exposition.
And from the other end too, when Bayou Bridge was going on, there was a lot of uplifting of the other oil pipelines too, because yeah, they are all connected and it's the same fight. And
Yeah, that's what I wrote about in my story.
I really like this story a lot. It's great.
Yeah, it's just layers of like it's different kinds of connections, but like we're all doing the same fight. And like I said earlier, like you're connected to yourself through these other people and their culture, and it reminds you of who you are and what you want to fight for. And we're all people of the same river. You know, it goes from the top down, and we all have the same love for this river and these places.
Yeah. Like the river being like, I don't know. Yeah, the connector is really powerful.
And our language is like reorienting us to how we relate to place. Um, yeah, like I just I just remember like some shit clicked in my head when my elder told me that story, and because it's really it's hard to be a newcomer to this part of the Midwest. Not because of it's because of white folks. But
Let's call a spade because white folks.
yeah, or call a bag of flour bag. I don't know. But
Dara Mayo.
but it you get getting introduced to Minnesotan colonial culture is really jarring. Like people don't say hi. Like not like you walking around the street and somebody like, say baby, what you need? Where you going? Um and all of the like there's still like this kind of hidden history of Minnesota's participation in slave trade, and there's still neighborhoods that are named after people that were like US Army officers that were also slave barons and shit up here. Um, a lot of like people don't understand Minnesota as like a site of both death camps and exile still because of the colonial narratives about the place. And so um they have like the narrative set up to like distance and dislocate Native people and Black and brown newcomers to this place from any of his like deep story. But my experience in the moments that I've seen other people like learn like place names for where we're at, it just completely like it just turns a switch where folks are like ready to throw down for the land because it just completely reorients them to the place.
Yeah, I really appreciate how in the story too that like Badote is taught like the creation story is in here to like I don't know, it's there's something about including that as a way to as a way to relate to where you are and like what this like the significance of that both as like a sacred site but also as like a like as like a story is was I don't know, I really liked it. And then like later in the story how it comes back to like it said like born in Bulbancha, blooded in Badote. I liked the use of those like the place name and like those languages there and also like the relation that's described in it. I feel like yeah, the description of like relating and relation is like really like rich throughout it.
Damn, I wish I would have wrote this one, but you know, it is what it is. Can't win them
Yeah.
all.
You missed out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think like the authors what is Ida's theory about like being connected to place through language might be? I know that might be redundant again, but maybe there's something else to it.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answers here. We listen and we don't judge.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Yeah, what do you think like the author's theory or understanding of like being connected to place through language is?
I mean, it's kind of the core, like centering value and in a lot of ways, like learning about the story of the name of this place and what happened and why it has that name or has that history. Like that's what this character is then centering. Like their partner has to come and be down with all of that, like in order to continue the relationship. Like it's a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, giving something or someone a name is a sacred thing. It's a ceremony in and of itself. So much so that, you know, when we speak of the dead, we don't use their name unless we use an honorific behind it so that we don't, call them back to this plane and or disrespect them in any way. So when we give places, land, a name, that means this place or land is an active participant in its existence. And that's not something to be taken lightly. And to remember that is to honor it and honor the people who lived there and steward the land and took care of it and thrived on that land. Or even if they suffered on that land, that's still something that needs to be honored too.
Yeah, I would echo the naming as a ceremony for sure. Um, that seems to be the author's experience of receiving that teaching, and then um at the end, like they facilitate for their future spouse the ceremony that they received from their elder, to orient them to place, but also to the characters like life and the way that they live their life. And
Yeah, that's why I said it was hopeful because like that teaching carries on, even even if it was unwittingly carried on, it's still carried on through the generations, connecting other people who are not in that community per se, but with that teaching, they become one with the people that created that ceremony, that created that place name.
yeah, and I'd have even bagged the baddie in the process, like
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Ida's
Something
a
else.
good writer and
Yeah.
is pulling.
Has excellent arms.
Something else I put in here is there's only the name Bulbancha. There is no colonial name for the place, for the city down here, and I appreciated
Mm,
putting that in.
that was very
But
clever. Yeah.
yeah, just even seeing this place for the name that it is, this place of many languages, and
Mm.
giving it its name, its pre-colonial name, um, and only giving that. So anybody else is like, what the hell is Bulbancha if they're not down with it? And it's like, yeah, figure it out.
Use Google, bro. Use Google, bro.
And that's part of growing up too, is like finding out what things mean, doing your own research and growing from that. That's a self-discipline type of shit.
Yeah. It's like a lot of doing your own, yeah, figuring it out and like having that like conviction and initiative to be like, yeah, like you have to make the choice to do that. But I also love that in the story, a lot of it is also done through others. Like there's like a lot of other characters in the story that like really help facilitate like being a good guest and also like creating that kinship that can exist whenever you're maybe not in a place that you know or that you're from, but knowing that you could be, as they put it, blooded there. Yeah. I'm curious what y'all think about how like the other characters in the story are created or represented.
I think it's a blessing to have elders that will teach you ceremonial ways and bring you in and just do that thing with you. It's like people knowing their role and doing their role and having the cycle come full circle again so that way it can continue on. Um, even bringing the partner back in. So that's the continuation of the circle of the cycle. Um, the confluence of waters too. That's also a cycle of regeneration. Um,
I like that the author mentioned the place where they were praying and the elders were praying and offering tobacco and sweetgrass, but also praying for the African ancestors who were enslaved at the fort. Like they're not to be forgotten. Like in this land that created us and we descended from here, this also land held a place and a home for those who are unwilling to be there, not by their own will. They were there and they suffered, but they also thrived, and their generations, their descendants are there still.
yeah, I guess there's a lot of survival um, that is uplifted because the site had been a concentration camp, a massacre. They were there. People were enslaved there, but still, people are fighting and resisting on this place, doing ceremony, telling the names, telling the stories, and like doing, like I said, continuing the cycle to make sure that it's going on, and bringing those that had passed and suffered there with them, with everybody. Like it's part of the story. They're still there too. Um, yeah, and that hope and like reverence for the star people too. Um, and just really going back to really those old stories, so making sure that everything is continuing forward.
Yeah, like the place has a power it has from the complicated history that it has a power that can be used by the people who live there, either for good or bad. It depends on what their intentions are. And you hold your intentions in high regard to the land, then that will give back to you through your culture, through your language, and just through future generations, how they will be left with land, how it will be for them if that power is still held for them to use, or will it be, taken away through colonialism?
Yeah, it is a really power. It's a power site, and it's like I I didn't have enough space to write about it, but there's two confluences of the river on either point of the island. Um, I like there's one of the stories that Ida couldn't include was like a second trip that they took to the island with this Norwegian American shaman dude who was like a environmental justice activist. And like across the river from the island, there's like a freshwater spring that the city was trying to turn into like a housing apartment complex, and people fought for like 6 or 7 years to like stop that from happening. Um, the like location of that fort was the first fort that was built in the Dakota Territory by the US. And it was like to put it at that site where it overlooks the confluence of these two rivers. And this creation site was like very, very intentional. It like opened up the rest of the northern Midwest to the colonizers. Um, and I think one of the other stories that I have of the island is that it was also a place where women would go to give birth. Um, and then that was despoiled by what happened after. Um, and then it's a really active part of the river. Like the part of the river that's called Hahawakpa is like the falls and stuff that are just a little bit further north of Bagote. Um, it's actually really I never thought I'd ever see the river like turn into a fucking waterfall. I also never thought I would see the river freeze over, but it freezes over in the winter time here, which is really wild. But it's still flowing underneath. Um, so yeah, it's a really powerful spot, and like more and more people are motivated to to rematriate it in these really beautiful ways that I think can inform what we do in the South too. Well, you want to talk about my story? It's number three.
Yeah, we could
Yeah,
keep
let's
going.
get into it.
Good.
All right. Let me pull
Well,
it. Wait, who wrote this one?
I did. I like my stickball. Those strapping young lads.
Let's see. Okay. What do y'all think this story is about?
eavesdropping.
Ear, ear hustling for sure. Being all up in the Kool-Aid, but not knowing the flavor. But still, but it's just the right amount of sugar in the Kool-Aid, so you're still drinking it.
Mm. You know, just enough about about the language to make your own assumptions about the conversation.
Oh man, y'all roasting me right now. Let's go.
But don't know enough of the language to be able to make a quip back.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The guy sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was nostalgic for me too. I remember you, Dane, telling me about this when it happened.
Hmm.
But no,
I'm glad you did, because I forgot.
but no, it reminded me of being in the house with my older relatives were there, like my great aunts and my grandma, and talking in French and stuff. And then like I'm just minding my business, and all of a sudden I hear my name. I'm like, oh, they're talking about me. So it was giving kind of that. But also like whenever I'm around somebody like maybe Tasso time or something, or just in Louisiana and I hear something in French or I hear something in Choctaw or I see something on Facebook that's in Choctaw, I'm like, I know that word. I'm like, I can make it out. I'm doing good. I'm learning. I'm progressing. I know more than I thought I did.
One of the things I really liked about the story was like there's no specific words that are highlighted in it, but it almost exemplifies like the experience of Babancha, like just
Yeah.
so many, it's like a super languages, and like it's just being in the vibe of experiencing um experiencing your culture as like the norm rather than the exception.
Mm.
Um, I think there's a sense of nostalgia, and I think there's a sense of like um longing, but also like eagerness to like understand. Um, and I also like that it's brutally honest about the fact that people just talking buku shit. Like it's sacred in how mundane an experience it is. It's like, oh yeah, it's not it's a ceremony, but it's like this is a ceremony where we come and talk heavy shit and get busy with them sticks and eat a lot of fried food. So it resonated a lot because of how like familiar it felt.
Yeah, I really loved how like the story, I mean, it made me just feel like excited because I could feel like there was like something competitive about it. And then also there like even though like there's no specific words highlighted, but it also still felt musical in when I was reading and I was like, oh, I can hear the different languages, just like the sounds of them and like just like feeling like how it must have felt to like be in a space that was like a lot of indigenous people playing sports, playing stickball, and then just like people gossiping in their languages. And yeah, it just felt like, I don't know. I was like, oh, I want to be there. I want to see it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the energy, like because that's in the first sentence, it's like the energy was electric. I'm like, oh, how electric? And like the MC is like out here bullshitting and shit, and it's like you know, when white people go to a baseball game, but no, we're going to a stickball game. And like Dane says, like it's normal, not the exception. Like this is a normal moment. Friends and her old dog Itchy, sweet Itchy go, and just eating, baseball food, stuff like that. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, the description of like them pulling the dog around, it almost gave me like this cinematic image of being there at the scene with them. And um I really like that detail. I know people was talking shit about the dog being in the stroller. I know they was. Uh,
Just about how cute he was. uh, Something that uh there was almost I cut or whoever wrote the story cut down on
I wrote
the
this.
yeah, Dean cut down on the level of noise actually that was there because also at the back there was a country music concert behind us across the street. So it was like there's the English country music that I'm trying to block out because of levels of like I don't want to hear English or country music. Like I'm trying to focus on the screaming of the stands of the people in front of me and the couple shit talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to read. Like it felt like like a celebratory moment too. Like it's mundane in the sense like you're going, it's familiar, but it also is just like yeah, like the joy of being there. And like you can bring your dog in a stroller if you want to.
I just did.
And also like they they're not sitting in the stands, like they're sitting like old school style, like right in the middle point of the field and stuff. I thought it was it spoke to my finer qualities, as a person who is known to break social conventions and institutional rules and challenge authority. Um
A fun way to
yeah.
be.
What'd you say?
A fun way to be.
Yeah, it's a fun way to be. And I think in some ways it like them choosing to or me choosing to describe my positionality in this event, like I'm also positioning myself in the middle of these exchanges of language that are happening and kind of taking it all in.
Yeah. Um, what do you think about like how can you tell how the other characters in the story are being represented?
Being pulled in a cart.
The shit talkers, no, like no, the the other characters to me were being presented as just people having a good time. Like it's a it's a happy day. It's a, I can picture like the sun on my face and I hear laughter and even like some complaints about, from people about the team, like, oh, you didn't get this, you didn't do this or whatever, like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. Just all the competitiveness within the story because it's a competitive game, because I know what stickball is. And yeah.
And then the author, who is unknown to us, is also, they're like at this competition, and they're also like challenging themselves to piece the puzzle together. Um, and it's something that they enjoy, which makes you feel good about the whole experience too. And like I know sometimes folks can feel really sad, feel a lot of grief about not knowing their mother tongues, but in this particular story, it's like this person has embraced the challenge of relearning the languages.
Yeah, I liked that. I feel like language is represented in different ways in each of the stories. Like, and in this one, I'm like, oh, this one feels, I mean, there's memory embedded in language in all of them, but this one in particular, I'm like, oh, it's like so social. It's like such a way of like, um, yeah, like it's just like so much of the atmosphere of being there. And like it's a way that people are actually like legitimately connecting with each other, and in real conversation. And I love that this story, yeah, is like it also feels generative of like it's not like there's in the two other stories, it's like both of memory and intergenerational exchange, and then also like a very spiritual component. And then there's also like just the actual like physical, like face-to-face connection of language that is like, yeah, that and it's nice that they were in this like space that like really facilitated that. Yeah, which can just feel so rare sometimes.
It also feels like a ceremony to me too, to be sitting in that moment and listening to, as I said, like picking out every Muskogean word that they can hear. Because sometimes ceremonies are about testing yourself. And
Mm.
so the author was testing themselves to see what they could pick out from their vocabulary, from their mental vocabulary, their mental dictionary, so to speak. And so yeah, I was like, wow, this is a ceremony too. Like it doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles of a ceremony and fancy whatever. Just being there in the moment and being present and mindful is a ceremony too.
I really like that interpretation of like ceremony can be communal, but sometimes our, yeah, like ceremony is internal, and it's just like whenever you go to a space, you're like, yeah, what do you do to connect to that place in that moment?
Yeah, in that moment, I was really trying to, push myself to
To test the limits of your language.
test the limits of my language. Yeah. And,
So
I
sacred, real tradition.
Tradish.
I had my Dr. Pepper with me too. I was
Yeah.
contemplating the meaning of different words as I took sips, ice and carbonated fizz bubbling in my plastic go cup. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and like you mentioned before too, I'm gonna bring this back around to your story. The connection to Bobancha of like letting things wash over you and just being in the moment and vibing and yeah, just like that same energy of language all around you and you're just like, I'm here, I'm doing my thing, but like I love to listen to everybody too, and it's so fascinating to hear what people are up to if you can even figure it out. Um, because yeah, that is also a place like a home, a connection to place and home that even though you're in a different part of the South, it's still like, okay, but we're like the cousins. The Choctaw are cousins to the Homa, and so it felt like being in a cousin space.
Oh, that's how y'all do it over here, huh?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is like a sense of belonging that you can feel through the story of just like, yeah, even if like you don't know, or I guess I can't remember. I have to go look at the story if Dane describes himself as Homa
No.
in the
If I
story.
describe myself as what?
As Homa.
Ah, well, I like to leave it to the reader to
Yeah.
really interpret, you know.
You
For
really took that
I,
prompt that said no backstory to heart.
yeah, that could have been open to interpretation. I'm sorry. But yeah, but I still like though that even though like you're not really sure who like the person's origin or anything, but you can still tell like the belonging that they have there. And it's kind of it is cool like knowing that the Choctaw are cousins to the Homa that like I don't know like there's like you don't have to be fluent in every language that you're hearing, but like there is and but just like being there that like ambient language exchange is like makes you feel at home and comfortable. Yeah.
I don't know everything you're saying, but I'm figuring out enough, and it reminds me of how my mom and papa talks and how they do this, that, and the other, and yeah.
Yeah, because they bring up like yeah, it makes me feel the way whenever they're down the bayou listening to Cajun French. I think that's the only mention of French too in any of the stories, which is interesting.
you know, the rest of us were cultural supremacists, you know, home supremacists.
And also, this one didn't mention oil, which is surprising.
That was
Oh
that
yeah.
was problematic, but you know, I wanted to give people a relief from the seriousness of the other two stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I have that indigenous joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Just
I thought about that too, because like um this one is just like a feel good piece
Mhm.
about everything, but there's still that underlying issue, like why doesn't this character know words? It's like why are they learning now? Why can't they speak it? And then yeah, you go down that rabbit hole.
Or the French too, yeah.
Yeah.
Or English.
Yeah. Just made up anyway.
All of the above.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't think about that part either though, Brittany. That's interesting to think about like, yeah, the why of like not being fluent. Because like initially you just feel like the excitement of like, oh, I get to be around all of it. But like there is whenever you like take the time to be like, yeah, there is a part where you're like, yeah, like language wasn't accessible or yeah.
Yeah, in my defense, y'all only just started 400 languages. So my use of Homer in this story was very good.
um So I want to ask the other like the another question that I offered in the other story for the other stories. But so what do you think the theory or understanding of being connected to place through language is for this author?
Immerse yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking like the fact that the author mentions the Choctaw Indian Fair. Where is the Choctaw Indian Fair? In Oklahoma, Indian Territory. So,
Mississippi, it says up front.
huh?
At the very beginning, rural Mississippi.
Oh, is it Mississippi? Okay. Yeah. So still in Mississippi. Choctaw Indian Fair. I don't know why I thought it was in Oklahoma. Anyway,
Other,
um,
there's other natives outside of Oklahoma. Jeez.
shh.
So Flowrider is gonna be
Yeah,
at
dang,
this
got me.
year's Choctaw Indian Fair.
Yeah. But like you have to go to that community to be able to like immerse yourself in it. These spaces are not very widespread. Like you have to go to the community to experience that. You can't just experience it anywhere you go. It's like I don't want to say slowly, like it's fast becoming hard to find. So yeah, you need to like go to the place, to the sacred place, that everything's sacred, to be able to experience these things now, because we're so far removed from what used to be an everyday occurrence, a mundane thing.
Yeah, so like the mundane becomes sacred and I mean not that it can't be anyway, but yeah, there's something even more like sacred about just like playing stickball because of just like what it means and like what it facilitates for us.
I also think a theory that the author has is like, you know, what you appreciate grows, what you focus your attention on grows. And so even my intentional choice to not talk about the, country music festival that was going on across the street that we were just drowning out with our shit talking on the ball field. Like it's I think there's some commentary that the author is making about how you can experience the world when you just center your people and appreciate like, okay, like yeah, maybe this is a small pocket, but that doesn't fucking matter. Like this is what is the most important, hottest shit on the street right now is this stickball field right here. And it kind of speaks to a certain way of engaging and immersing ourselves in the language. Like there's ways where we can immerse ourselves in something in a way that's anchored in grief, or you can immerse yourself in a way that is like centered on like, you know, um, like the little like bear streusels and saltwater taffy and Dr. Pepper and shit. And seeing somebody get tackled in the middle of the field. And it's a more vivid and embodied way in some ways of engaging with the culture and spreading the culture, which I thought was really cool here. Hashtag Indigenous Joy.
Right? You have to make the choice to live either in joy or grief.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I mean, it's there. We have plenty of things to grieve about,
Mm-hmm.
but like, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, what you gonna balance it out with?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad I wrote this story.
Damn, so profound.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I feel like you said Dane embodied. I think that's a good word for like what this story kind of conveys is like the embodied experience of language. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the different ways that it carries through in different parts of joy. I really like that framing of it. I had a couple, maybe a few more questions. Let me look at my notes. Do. I think we talked a lot about it, like the spatial aspects. Um, mhm, mhm. Yeah. Does anybody have anything else related to the story that they feel like mentioning?
I
Just that it was exquisitely written, you know.
appreciate that Britt brought up the, like you just said, the spatialness of it, of like, yeah, having to go to rural Mississippi, then also mentioning down the bayou, Louisiana, so you're already getting kind of a sense of distance of that. Because like you're very right that that distance is real, of like there is a reality of having to either go to Oklahoma or Mississippi or some other state because of how Louisiana is right now currently, and just the reality of like accessing deep indigenous cultural points. And that's why we've been doing so much of these efforts to try to bring stuff to Louisiana, is because we don't have these things. It's like we ain't got the money and time and access to be able to keep driving the friggin' wherever, like Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, any of that.
So are you soft launching the first annual Indigenous Anarchist powwow in Babanta? Are we prefiguring that reality?
Yeah, we'll have a different meeting for that.
That'll
That will be an action item after this.
be an action item.
Yeah, non-evil bencha.
Yeah.
Street stickball.
Um, I think my last thought about, or one other, I'm sure I'll keep thinking about all of it, but also similar to the last story, something about like language in this particular story feels like the fact of like immersing yourself and learning it or trying to figure it out is also feels like reverent. There's something like, especially, I mean, knowing that the author is Homa and is in a different place, but like participating and trying to like, and just like knowing that they're really interested in where they are and like relating through language just feels like also like being a good guest, even if like you belong there in some way, you know?
Yeah, something that got considered, I remember hearing about during this writing, was the like addition of people's names and like how relating to that land through the people and the relatives and how how maybe knowing language or something and people that live there and teach there. And I was like, that feels like too much backstory. And also this is going to be like, I know it would names change and stuff. But yeah, the choosing of like language and people and place and the relations therein was a decision that was made on what got put into the story and not. And it was filling out the story so much. I was like, oh, no, that's taking up too much space. But that's how it is too. It's just like, but I relate to this person this way, and they taught me this thing, and yeah, it's very indigenous.
Let me tell you about what color the paint was on the wall so that you understand why I felt the way that I felt about this shit.
And they brought me some killer lunch, and it was so good.
My hand was shaking from drinking so much cold drink. I
Paul came and told me a dirty joke, like
remember that one.
So I was thinking we could like maybe talk more about the three stories together as like how they relate to each other a little bit. Because I think they're all very different, but they're all like still very related. So I'm wondering if you're noticing any like emergent themes between the three.
Yeah, reconnection. So like the first one, like is trying to maintain the connections for the kids and trying to figure out how to do that post like flooding and um places disappearing. And then in the second story, um the reconnection to the rivers and the names and the people descended from that place, and then the changing of the landscape through colonization and slavery. And then in the third story, the reconnection to language and culture by visiting this place that bears the culture through stickball, and and just having people there, producing their culture in different ways through song, through sport, through artwork, things like that.
The other connection that I think is really interesting is like the way we went through the stories. It went from like the most presence of water to like the most presence of like solid earth. And like as we went from like deep water to river to earth, like the stories became lighter.
I love that. That's beautiful.
I was struck by how even though we're all three authors are home of people, all three stories take place in different places. We have unknown but mentioning Louisiana, rural Mississippi, and mentioning Louisiana. Well, everything mentions Louisiana and the valley, and then the Minnesota and mentioning the River Valley and Bulbancha. Um, so strong connections here to Louisiana. Um, and even though people are in different places, that connection is still so strong.
Yeah, everybody's in different places, but no one's in Louisiana. Yeah.
In the stories, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah, that's what it, yeah,
diaspora.
in the stories. Yeah, one thing that I was thinking too was like how not just like speaking or language, but as a ceremony, but like that listening is like it really is like listening as ceremony is kind of present through all the stories, whether it's like to the crows, to the rivers, to the many languages that you're hearing around you. Like there's so much like yeah, reverence in that and that like language isn't just about speaking, but it's also about listening. And like there's like, yeah, there's that exchange too.
I think there's also a student teacher dynamic in pretty much all of them.
Mhm.
Yes, in all of them, the parent and the child, the elder and the youth or young, whatever, the young man, and then the self-teaching person in the group being immersed. But yeah, a strong elements of learning and passing that on. I guess passing it on doesn't come up much in the third story.
But it's for sure like implied because I guess like you're thinking about this person, at least in my mind, I wasn't imagining the author of that story as like an elder. Maybe just because they mention elders, you know? So like it's they kind of imply like that they're on their yeah, one day they will be, but yeah. So there is
Mhm.
like an exchange for sure. Yeah. There's also like language as like a bridge like across time and place in all of them. Like there's like all of them are like kind of describe language sort of as portals to something, either to a place or to people. Um, and yeah, I just feel like anytime like language is mentioned or like whether it's like an actual place name or a word, like it invokes something very important. Yeah.
Family is also mentioned across all three stories.
What is?
Um,
Sorry.
family, like each of the authors experiences language in some kind of deep connection with a loved one.
Yeah. Yeah. Family really carries a lot of memory because I guess like, yeah, family is like part of like what helps you feel embodied in it, maybe.
Yeah, and like I went to I went to a college that is like world renowned for teaching people languages,
Cool.
but so much of it is like it's oriented towards language for business rather than language for kinship. But kinship is like essential to how the language is transmitted here and like why we even engage in like telling these stories about or like kinship is what triggers these stories about language.
Yeah. How would that, I'm curious then how y'all would like either in relation to these stories or just generally how you would like describe kinship or like what does kinship feel like maybe through language or yeah because kinship there's like the like blood relative maybe like actual family parts that are mentioned in the stories, but I feel like there's so much relating.
That's what I've been contemplating was like the kinship part. I was actually just looking through back over the stories. And like kinship and memory, I guess, is kind of referenced in all of them, and like being kind of pinged. Or I was kind of seeing if it was in story two as well. But like something triggering someone's memory and going back and thinking about that memory and that teaching within. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, and in the second one, like way the way you got the story was because that Afro-Indigenous elder made kin with Dakota and Anishinaabe folks, so there's some lineage there. Um,
Yeah, I see kinship as like not necessarily being blood related, but participating in the life together and like helping one another through this life in any way that you can, being a good relative to each other
Mm,
and creating those bonds. Like even with the crows, sharing the language fala and with them and talking to them and interacting with them, that provides the kinship there that's marked in the universe, you know.
mm. I think one thing you all mentioned about each story was like a little bit of nostalgia. Like nostalgia was, yeah, kind of a bigger theme. But I feel like nostalgia was also framed, like as we were talking, like not just as like, I mean, maybe like a prompting point for like survival or like survivance, you know? Like we're remembering things that are maybe painful or just like or working through something that's like that feels like grief, but it's like there's something in each story that's like language and access to culture and story like is a part of that like mutual survivance.
mhm. I think like nostalgia, nostalgia also suggests sometimes like there's a possibility that I can return to this place. Like maybe it's not lost entirely. Like it's and I do feel like that. I mean the second story expertly, I would say, mentions an intention to return. But also implied in all three of the stories is like this possibility of like continuity. Like the first story, the children are they're getting the story about the land through this interaction with the crow. Um, and then in the third story, it's just like this is what it looks like for the culture to continue. Um, and then the second one is even when we are learning other kin folks' languages, like they can bring us back to our own folks. Um, so yeah, if we could have written 2 pages instead of one, maybe it would have been about us going home.
We would have been here for 48 hours.
We would have been here before, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that you said continuity because yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like things are never truly forgotten. Someone or something always remembers. Time is an entity of itself.
mhm.
It exists outside of our social constructs.
The other thing I thought was cool across all three stories is like Louisiana, um, like what would be the term for like geography, like ecosystem like characteristics came up as like anchors in each of the stories. Like the first one is anchored to Grand Isle and the Gulf and the bayous there. And the second one is anchored to the River Delta, and then the bayou comes up in the last story too. Even though we're in different places, we're still orienting ourselves to the place where we're from.
Yeah, to the waterways we're from.
Hmm. To the shrimp boat nets in which we are conceived.
Born in a fish boat. Were there like any personal memories? Y'all talked a little bit about this, but were there any like personal things that came up for you, like memories of your own or like childhood things from reading other people's stories?
Mm.
Definitely. Um, yeah, I mentioned before I have my own memories of like going down the bayou in the boat in my papa's boat, going down to see the old campground that was underwater, and where they used to post up for their hunting. Um, my family was never rich enough to have a shrimp boat, so we just had the little uh pup
Little
pup.
pirogue,
Huh?
little pirogue.
Yeah, it had a motor, but yeah. Um, yeah, and just like places. Also, lots of memories of beaten up houses after hurricanes, things in the bayou, houses in the bayou, boats half out the bayou. Um, and also of people rebuilding after that and still just being like, well, that's in the bayou now. I guess that's a later me problem. I'm gonna build a house here and we'll have a place to sleep and it'll just be what it is. Figure it out tomorrow. Um, I also have memories of being up north and when I was part of the Sacred Waters pilgrimage, and so I went from Minnesota all the way down at 7 different points along the Mississippi. Um,
Sharon Day
huh?
with Sharon Day.
Sharon Day, yeah, that name sounds familiar.
Then we were if you were at Bidota, we were probably at the same procession.
I maybe I wasn't at the headwaters, but I did the other procession, so maybe so.
The one in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we were at the same procession.
Oh. Yeah, I was the person that sang the AIM song.
Oh shit.
When was that?
Huh?
When was that?
That was like the week of George Floyd.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
That's absolutely bazonkers.
Mhm. We weren't allowed to go into the city because we had like security and they couldn't keep us safe during the protests. So we got to the youth fellows or whatever. We went in afterwards to go see, like I got to go see when they took over the streets and had the gardens growing in the street and they had the stage up and it was just like, yes, like it fucking sucks that this is why this is happening, but like fucking take that power back. And it was so inspiring. And I was all riled up. Um, I keep that memory of that place with me
Mm,
for sure. And that was a special ceremony.
mm,
I think I still have some water from the headwaters, maybe even. I'm gonna have to dig that up.
mm,
Um, anyway, I'm done.
Um, I'm wondering what you guys think, like for all three stories or a individual story, like what do you think that they are asking for us to remember or take seriously? Is Brittany back?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm back. I'm just contemplating.
for sure. Gotta contact.
I guess like taking the language and the culture seriously. Like it's a part and piece of who we are, and it's something that we're, like Britt said earlier, reconnecting to and uplifting and striving, creating pathways back towards, and reigniting pathways back towards. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What do you think like for either all three stories or maybe an individual story, if something resonated with you, what the author or the story is trying to get us to remember or take seriously?
I think all three of the stories are in some ways about giving, like each author gives himself permission to be in relation with the language. And just thinking about it like pedagogically, like I think we we don't have the we don't have the privilege or the benefit of having folks like to, kind of spank our hands and tell us like, yo, you need to know this shit. Um, and I think without those folks, it it can feel really daunting to do the kind of reconnection work that we're doing. Um, like to the point, like I'm just thinking from the perspective of like African descent communities, like without folks to give that permission, there has been a lot of language death. Um, and so each of the authors is, even without saying it, is like they've given themselves permission to like go and pursue a relationship with the language, even if it's from like roundabout ways.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like, um, the authors have given themselves permission to find community where they can.
Mm.
Like, community doesn't just exist. You make community. You make these connections and kinship. And so, like with the second story, like the young man finds a partner that they want to marry and makes sure that their ideals are on the same, if not on the same level, but close to the same level, that they can vibe together and they can grow together. And that's something I had to do with my husband. Like, he's really disconnected from his culture. He jokes that he's the whitest Mexican ever. But he supports me in my efforts to maintain my culture for myself and for our kids. You know, it's not just my kids, it's his kids too. So he has to be a supportive measure in that so that the kids know that this is something serious, but it's good for you. It's healthy for you to know this knowledge and keep these ways.
Serious and healthy for you, like Dr.
The I didn't catch it all of it. I just heard Dr. Pepper.
Serious and healthy for you, like Dr.
Oh, okay. Um, Even the third story also mentions a partner, even though it's not said what
Mhm.
anybody's alignment is. Like that person, Ryan's partner, is there too, being with them, helping pull the small dog and like being in space with them. Um, so yeah, I definitely agree that like aligning yourself with people that are gonna get you to that place that you want to be in your journey. Um, and being the person that you want to help other people in their journey to get to similar places, um, seems to be kind of a through line too.
What do y'all think like is unfinished in the stories or like, what do you think like the next chapters or like next I know y'all were like saying like, if we had 10 pages. Yeah, who knows what we could have wrote. But I'm just wondering, yeah, what else do you think would come like we could carry forward with the stories?
Uh, Story three could be the speaking part instead of the listening.
Yeah. Story two could be about like those first steps that the young person took to reconnecting with folks or learning this language.
Yeah, and story one could be, the daughter asking more questions about the language, but she does in real life. And, wanting to be a part of the language as a whole and being excited that they have this language that they share with their mother, but no one else, in their area environment, in their current environment, stuff like that. And just that the feeling that it brings to know that you are a part of something bigger.
I think the perfect part two for story one could be when the uh Helen's helping the parent at the classroom and teaching the rest of the class about Uma words. And then
Yeah.
gone to teach all the other classes too.
Yes. Yeah, she did that for the first time when we went to KIPP Central City Primary School in New Orleans. And she was in a room full of kids her age or older, and she was helping me teach them about Bobancha and other words and stuff like that. And it was really cool. Yeah, and now she does that at Hasso time. She helps teach immersion.
That's so sweet.
The youth, the youth.
Mute them.
The youth. Oh my gosh.
Thunder.
Trying to think if I mean this was a really fun and like pretty thorough, like y'all had so many like fun things and interesting things to share. Do y'all
Are you
think
saying
like
that we had the better group? Yes. Okay.
the other group hasn't gone yet? So so I
That's
mean
their
y'all
problem. You know what I'm saying? Shit.
um I don't know. Do you think that maybe is there a collective like understanding of what like survivance and language is from these stories? I know like we're kind of reiterating a lot of things, but sometimes it's kind of nice to do that.
Mm.
I guess for me, actually, the big one is that like language needs people. Like you got to be around people to speak it or to hear it or to exchange it. And also that language in each of the stories is really treated like a relative in its own way. Like it's like meeting a cousin that you haven't met before, or you're, getting better to know them or whatever. Like there's like language being also kin.
Yeah, and that I feel like in all the stories that the language and culture is so intertwined, you can't separate the two. Like it would not be, I don't know where to look for. It would not be in your own interests, I guess you'd say, to separate the two because without language, how is a culture going to survive? You know, um, it needs to be spoken and it needs to be reiterated and through the generations. And without culture, the language is meaningless. Like we have these words for certain things that we do in everyday life and in places and things like that. So, like without that remembering of the culture, like the language dies out.
Mm,
Yeah, I think building on that, I think we're also what we're not what we're not saying in the stories is that a temporary loss of connection with language can't be reversed or can't be healed. Um, and it's our specific connections to place that sustain our culture and have sustained us long enough to come back and reclaim our language. Um, I also think about, since we're talking about survivance, and Gerald Visner is Anishinaabe, and so it's his people's name for the river that goes across all of our territories on one end. And those cats have like they have like such an amazing program for continuity of their language. Like I was able to like witness some of it. Like they have like a whole academic conference where the large portion of it is completely in Anishinaabe. And it's just dope. People going ham on the language. Um, and then there's also like there's really cool thinking that they have done around like sovereignty too. And one of the one of the phrases or one of the like um quotes that always kind of sticks with me is this guy from White Earth said that sovereignty is a muscle, like the heart that has to be exercised in order for it to function. And so many people many people would try to discourage us from reclaiming our language because they think that like cultural death means language dies and language death means culture dies. And actually we're disputing that idea. And that is how we also practice our sovereignty. Um, like no one else can give you permission to be a people. You have to just do it. Um, so it kind of goes back to what we were saying about all the authors gave themselves permission to reconnect with the language. And it's part of this larger project of restoring sovereignty to their community.
Really like that quote, sovereignty is a muscle. Yeah. I was there is this I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago and I heard somebody say he was a lumbee musician and he was about to play some music and he was just saying that I think he said something along the lines of like culture is how we see our relationships like come alive. And I feel like language is another way that that happens. So kind of like what Brittany was just saying about like um yeah, I don't know, like just needing, yeah, culture and language being so intertwined and it's a way to like, yeah, embody who you are with other people. Yeah. Let's see. Well, I don't think I have any other additional questions or points. So we kind of finished a little early, but I still want to give time to like whatever additional thoughts y'all have because it sometimes you go through an analysis or you're thinking about things and then you're like, oh, actually, like I don't know, things come up later. So that can come up in a different, oh my gosh, splooting, just splooting. Oh my gosh. But yeah. Yeah, if y'all just have any additional thoughts, things that I didn't ask about.
Yo, gratitude to you for facilitating this. Like this is like you were like you're very adept at like you just had every question ready. Every question was very thoughtful and poignant, and this whole process, um, just thinking about it as like someone who does research, like this I just learned a lot from seeing how you facilitated it and also from my kinfolk about who they are. So yeah, thank you for gifting us with this process.
Yeah. Thank
You
y'all
should
for
get an A, you should get an A triple plus on this project, Professor.
I better.
Community says this young person deserves an A triple plus.
Also, yeah, I'm gonna be like, look, here's the evidence everyone else has.
Yeah.
Pass me
Yeah.
unconditionally.
Peer assessment say A triple plus.
Yeah.
Go
I
for
like how we got to know each other through these stories because, they're memories and they're part of who we are. It shows our personalities and our hopes and dreams and, things that we're working towards in so many words. I feel like I got to know y'all a little bit better.
Yeah, it was yeah, this was so fun. It was also like it was very like eye-opening. I learned a lot about y'all and also just like I don't know, like being Homa in different situations and scenarios. But also this was the goofiest like collective memory work session I've ever led, which was also great. Like
it.
I loved it. Yeah, like they're always interesting, but yeah, just rewatching this is gonna be really funny.
If we do anything, we're gonna pass a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also this is going to be on Blancpain Public Access, so everyone can see just how fun it is. Yeah, but a lot of gratitude to y'all too. Thank y'all for writing. And what will probably happen, I am gonna like let my advisor know, that we did the collective workshop session, and then y'all will get a check. So I just need to get y'all's addresses. So I'll send an email out. Well, I guess it would be on the OK contracting system form thing. But yeah, so it will probably be like the $600 or whatever it was initially, and then by the time the second focus group happens, we'll see like who got to participate. I know. I thought somebody would point that out. Yeah, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I had a good little chuckle over that.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully I'm pretty sure the second focus group will happen, but if it doesn't, then other payment might come through. So, but yeah, you'll get $666. Yeah.
Oh, it's the contract in the shared folder. I saw there was a blank contract, but I didn't know if
Yeah,
that was
I
something we need to fill out.
yeah, I uploaded a filled out one where I put in all of my information. So yeah. I did that yesterday, so it's in there now.
You have my full consent
Okay.
to pay me any amount of money without me signing the contract.
What'd you say?
I said you have my full consent to send me any amount of money without me signing the contract. Actually, send me the contractually obligated amount of money without me signing it, and then about me signing it for another amount of money.
Right on, I will do that.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, that was so fun. Thank you guys. Cool. I'll follow up too with just like I'll keep you updated obviously like on how like the project goes and like as I'm like trying to publish and if y'all wanted to be co-authors on something. I'm not really sure how that process works yet. Like I've only published one paper in my life, but yeah, I would just like love to keep doing it to like be in this process with you guys.
Yes, let's do it.
Cool. All right. Well, yakuke,
Yakuke, achapese, y'all.
Yeah, Chipesa.
achifesa.
Peace.
Yeah.